Trade Genius.
What's up, guys? Philip at Trade Genius. Let's take a look at the Bitcoin charts and see what's in store for the broader crypto markets this week. All right, so because our weekly candle just closed, we're going to take a look at the weekly bars. And one thing I want to point out to you guys is that look how quiet it's gotten. I mean, we have basically three really tight ranges, basically, you know, like dojis, but I mean, this is really, really tight. And we can scroll back here on the chart and look at areas where it's gotten like this quiet. One thing is for certain, a decent sized move is going to come out of this, and relatively soon, because Bitcoin generally does not stay this tight of a range for very long. Even back when 2015, when we had the you know, basically sort of the end of the consolidation period. But I'll show you as we scroll backwards, you'll see what I mean. But the weekly range for this bar here that we're going to keep an eye on, the high was 64.39, the low was 64.06. Guys, that's about as tight a weekly range as you will ever see on Bitcoin. I mean, take a picture. I mean, it's just really, really tight. So if we scroll back, I'll show you guys, you know, and you have to kind of go way back on a linear chart here, but you'll see the area like this. Let me turn my pointer on. All right, so the pointer, we've got an area of very tight consolidation like you saw here. This is back in September of 2015, and then we had a nice rise out of that, and that's kind of what we're expecting to see in the month of November. Again, over here, a couple tight weeks and then a decent move up out of that. So they do happen, but three consecutive ones like that, really tight. As you can see, decent sized moves stem or tend to come out of those areas, and for the most part to the upside. So that's the bias. A lot of people are thinking that November is going to be bullish, which I'm not a fan when sentiment gets, you know, lopsided. Yes, November typically is a bullish time, but unless we're in a longer cycle, right? Now the model's saying we're not, we're in a tighter cycle, so November being bullish toward the end of November would correlate with that. But if we were to come down out of this range, and basically, guys, what we're looking at is if we were to break this red trend line, which currently, like right now, we're at a price level of about 61.17 for that. That would be the ideal spot to get long, although we're starting to see some support a little higher ahead of that. Now, if we look at the daily chart, and you know, Bitcoin's basically dictating the broader crypto market. I mean, there's just a few alts here and there that are seeing some decent gains, but overall, you know, it's dictating the overall crypto market. Now, we're starting to run toward where we're going to run into the top of this descending wedge. And this has been, you know, descending wedges are bullish, especially when they're large like this. So going to be very key, or it'll be very key to see what happens when we start interacting with that. Again, we had a move up over the weekend. That move met into resistance. Last video I said, you know, we're going to see some resistance above, and we've since kind of hit our head on that. So if we drill down to the smaller time frame, and let's look at like a 4-hour chart. What I have overlaid here, guys, is the S&P 500 futures, ES, and you're going to see that even though, like, you know, since the beginning of October, the Bitcoin's outperformed the ES futures, or the S&P index for that matter, but you can see that it's kind of held a similar structure though. So when the ES has gone down, Bitcoin spiked down. Over here, where it looked like it was diverging pretty nicely, ES kind of, or the Bitcoin spiked down toward the ES price. ES moved up. Again, this is the S&P 500 futures, and then Bitcoin subsequently started to move up. So overall, Bitcoin's a lot more stable, as there's a lot less volatility, but there are some tendencies that when the S&P 500 moves in a certain direction, you might see not as much in percentage terms, but a slight tendency on Bitcoin. You might see a sudden move down, and there's just a little bit of correlation there. Not a lot. It's a lot more muted right now. The S&P 500 is much more volatile. It's like they've traded places, but just keep that in mind. So if you see we have a big week, there's elections on Tuesdays that could have huge impacts on the market. So just bear that in mind, that we may see some collateral effects on Bitcoin. Ideally, we see it break away and start seeing it move up against any kind of market weakness. But right now, it still seems to be sympathetic to when the market's weak. You might see a little bit of a downside move to catch up with that, like we saw back here on October 29th. All right, so just keep that in mind. Other than that, guys, we're basically just looking at these ranges. Again, we've kind of hit our head on the 6440. There's going to be shorts here. If we zoom in tighter, you're going to see that we have kind of what's called a bear flag here on the 4 hour, which is when you have this formation here, after you move up, and so the tendency will be to break up. So keep an eye on that. Again, getting a back above the 6440 level would be kind of key for that. So we'll see how that plays out. Right now we're on a slingshot sell, and we've been seeing some downside since then. So going forward, guys, for the week, 6440 is a level to watch, and then 6570 is another level to watch. Okay, going to keep those levels pretty tight because that's all that Bitcoin seems to be wanting to give us at the moment. Downside level would be 6146. Again, that's going to coincide with that lower trend line. So those are your levels, kind of just right ahead of us to be looking for if you're looking to swing trade this thing. Otherwise, the macro picture, guys, would be our Bitcoin model. We'll take a look at that real quick. All right, so here's the model, and again, I drew this line in September, and so this whole period that we're going through right now is no surprise. We're looking for a chop, and we're getting it. But as we move through November, we want to start seeing if we can get an upward bias. So some of these technical levels will start breaking. So if we do get a dip in Bitcoin this week, I would want to be positioned long on that in anticipation of this move up. So again, 4-day chart from the previous market cycle that retraced and then moved back up is correlating with the daily. Now, some of you have asked why the 4-day chart is correlating, and I'll show you why here. All right, so this is a parabolic model, and so our previous cycle is highlighted here, and this is our current cycle. So as you can see, it's a tighter cycle, and this would fall in line with the parabolic curve type move. And so we'd be expecting start seeing a decent sized move up off of this parabolic curve. So that's why that model correlates like that. Okay, so that's ties into that parabolic model. All right, guys, so just keep in mind this week those levels. We got elections on Tuesday night. Depending on how those go, the market, we may see a lot of volatility in the stock market. So keep an eye on that. That's Tuesday into Wednesday. That could be a pretty interesting scenario, and we'll have to keep an eye on how that affects the Bitcoin price relative to like the S&P 500. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and if you're on mobile, ring that bell, and I will see you on tomorrow's video. Take care. Bye.
Trade Genius.